This week on the OneCast, we're joined by Dylan Freeze, National Professional Fishing League Pro, all the way from the Buckeye State.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
Go Blue. What's going on? Yeah. What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the OneCast. Man, we have been doing this for a long time. I was just thinking about that.
113 episodes.
Holy moly. 113. And that's like not even including Fishing Friday Live.
It's like roughly 110 weeks because we had a couple where we recorded multiple. We'll just call it 105.
Yeah, but we're always excited to get back in the studio. Always excited to bring you guys great content. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump into those who support us the most. And that's OneCast Fishing. Head on over to onecastfishing.com and use the code the OneCast. And please get your hands on those new Nighthawks that just came out. Ben's got a couple different colors. Pearl, and then sunfish.
Right?
Sunfish laminate. Yep.
Sunfish laminate.
So get your hands on those. Obviously, we got the weedless Neds, the snagless jigs. If you want to join the snagless revolution, get your hands on all the different variants that he has. We got the soft plastics, the Nighthawks, the warthogs, all those things, the stingers. The merch is over there. So head on over, use the code the OneCast, save some money. Where else do they need to go?
From there, they need to head to CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code the OneCast, all one word. Grab yourself some UPF gear, gloves, face masks, everyday wear t-shirts, hats. I got one of the, if you have a big head, I highly recommend this hat right here. It's made for big-headed folk, and it does a great job. Ben's rocking one. Trey's got a little Hero Harvest going on. But make sure you grab some of that gear, code the OneCast, all one word. David Fuchs, make sure you use that at checkout. They also have a new shirt
they do
drop, so go grab you one of them. And then from there, use the link in the description, or you can go to hobieeyewear.com. Grab yourself a pair of Hobie Eyewear floating frame glasses. If you follow us on socials, you saw Trey decide to knock his pair into the water at the ramp the other morning, getting ready to practice for our upcoming tournament. Because I have a real job and he practices for all our tournaments. So he was out there, dropped them, didn't have to worry about losing a high quality pair of glasses because they floated. So hobieeyewear.com, but use the link in all of our social descriptions and grab yourself a pair of those for a discount.
Ben, where else do they need to go?
So then they need to go over to their Play Store or Apple. I guess it's not iTunes Store anymore, but your App Store, and download the Deep Dive app. Go down there, take advantage of the free trial, but definitely subscribe for the year. Take advantage to plan your fishing trips even better. Look at the current weather conditions, future weather conditions. Understand which areas of the lake might be best based upon all their data, based upon all the information they're bringing in. And Trey's sitting here going through it right now, looking for Bugs Island, looking for this weekend for themselves.
Yeah, I'm here. Fish the Fishers of Man, North Carolina Central Division. Don't use Deep Dive for this week. It's not going to help you. No, make sure you check that out. Last but not least, if you're looking to buy a home or piece of property in Central North Carolina, make sure you look at our good friend Terry Carpenter, aka Uncle Terry, licensed NC Realtor here in North Carolina with Howard Perry and Walston. And I forgot I was so good. I was so Coldwell Banker. Got it. I knew it'd come to me. We're professionals. Make sure you hit up Terry. We've said his phone number a bunch of times. You can hit him at carpenterT@hpw.com. Shoot him a phone call, email, let him know what you're looking for, and he'll find it for you. For all of our military friends, PCS season is coming. And Terry knows the area well because we bought in one of the popular areas for our military community. So make sure you hit Terry up and he'll find the home that you are looking for. So real quick, Jason Christie, congratulations on the dub. National Professional Fishing League stop number 1, did it his way with a spinnerbait on the daggum cypress trees. If that swamp spinnerbait bite is on and Jason Christie's in the field, he's a tough man to beat. Lots of solid performances from a lot of people. We're excited to have Dylan Freeze join us. We're going to get his story. I know he wants to talk a little bit about just the fishing life. He's been around for a while and has some experiences and all of that. Before we do that, I have not done this, and this is dropping. Trey and I are leaving next Friday for Lake Murray for the Fisherman National Championship. And I just want to talk about how important having partnerships are if you're going to fish and you're going to travel. So just thanks to those, Terry Carpenter provided us with some funds, Carolina Waters, those guys over there. Ben stepped up in a huge way with OneCast Fishing and covered our lodging for that entire 9 days, which is a huge burden financially off of us. So can't do without those folks. Just a huge shout out to them. Make sure you're using them if you're fans of the show. Yeah, can't say enough good about
on the flip side of that. Pete and I are going to do our very best to, promote and support all those that who have shown us, both monetary and like emotional and spiritual support along the way, because it's a big deal. The top 36 teams advanced to day 3 at the national championship, and there's some serious money on the line and stuff like that. And it's not all about the money. It's about the experience and the fellowship with the Fishers of Men. It's a great organization. So be on the lookout for some great content. So thanks to everyone that support us along the way. Pete mentioned earlier with Terry supporting the military community. PCS season's coming up. Reminded me of Heroes Harvest and Mitch Vasquez, who was the president and founder of Heroes Harvest. He's been leading the charge for the last 4 years. He's stepping away to take a new journey. He's still going to have some role in Heroes Harvest, which is a 501c3 focusing on getting veterans in the outdoors. I'm a volunteer for that organization. Pete and I did a Heroes Harvest trip last year. Yep. And so I just want to say, Mitch, you've been an amazing friend. He was a peer of mine. We did multiple deployments in different countries together. And so I just, want to congratulate you on 4+ years in that, and good luck in your new endeavors. So looking forward to seeing great things come from Mitch, man.
Yeah.
Anything else from you guys before we bring Dylan on? Nothing?
Want me to bring him on?
Let's do it, dude. Let's bring him on the show.
Roger that, Sergeant.
Roger that, Sergeant.
Roger that, Sergeant.
All right.
There he is.
Like we mentioned, all the way from the Ohio.
All the way from the Buckeye State, baby.
Here we go.
You're not a Michigan fan, are you?
Yeah. Oh, well,
Trey
I'm from Kalamazoo originally,
and I'm a Penn State fan. I grew up in Pennsylvania, so
yeah, I'm getting double teamed here.
Dylan Freeze, man, welcome to the OneCast. We appreciate you taking some time out of your afternoon. We know you got a family and you just came off the road from Santee, but we really wanted to bring your story to our audience. We have a pretty vast audience all around the globe, actually. And so with that being said, man, introduce yourself to the OneCast family.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is pretty cool, man. I think this is only the second podcast I've ever done. I did one last year at I think we were at Murray with 10 Horse Monty, and I was half drunk, so I was kind of half drunk.
Well, you have that on a big job.
10 Horse Monty
didn't go so well. I think I talked a little too much, but yeah, man. I'm 34 years old. I've been fishing since I was like 12, 13, in the bass tournaments and stuff, from Cincinnati. Got 2 beautiful kids, my daughter just turned 6. My son will be 4 and on the 21st of this month, next week, I think almost. And beautiful fiance, 13 years. I can't convince her to marry me yet. But other than that, man, it's like,
hey, that's a marathon.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But no, man, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to get to talk to you guys about highs, lows, ups and downs of life and bass fishing and everything, man. So the floor is yours.
What got you into tournament fishing or bass fishing in general? Like what was that, dad and stuff,
So I actually grew up in a place, Mason, Ohio, which is just north of Cincinnati, like 25 miles. Real, like back in the day, it's where my whole family was from. It was like old farm town, and then kind of like got built up, and we moved out to the country where I live now. I was in 7th grade, and I had fished creeks and rivers and stuff with my grandfather and stuff my whole life, but it was kind of just spin a rod, fly a rod, just messing around, catching 8 and 10 inch smallmouth and chasing creek chubs and stuff like that, and man, we moved out here. My parents bought 10 acres and we were living in an RV, building our house. And guy across the street had a pond, and I took my Zebco over there with a damn rooster tail on it, and I caught like a 3-pounder, like the second cast. And I shouldn't say this. I I didn't even take the dang hook out of his mouth. I ran back over here, left the rod laying on the bank, grabbed a 5-gallon bucket, filled it with water out of the faucet, and brought it back so my dad could see it when he got home from work. And I killed the poor thing, and
Oh, so that fish was dead in the door now when Dad got home from work.
Yeah, but and from honestly after that day, it was, dude, within 3 weeks, I'm like searching. This is like 2004, maybe. So,
So you're still in the heyday of bass fishing.
Yeah.
And so and we're living in a camper, right, building their house, and so. And we had DirecTV in the camper, and I'm like watching. I think this was like first year of the elites or like right before. And, I pop on, I see Ike and Ellie going, "Never give up." And I actually have it tattooed on the back of my arm like an idiot.
Oh,
but, it's like, I played football growing up. I'm a big guy. And I when I moved schools, I stopped playing sports. I like that bass changed my life. I mean, it just changed everything for me. Like I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care about girls at the time. I was like, I had a 4-wheeler and I strapped 2 rods to the 4-wheeler and ran across the street, and I fished daylight to dark every day until, I got, my mom was on the internet looking, and there was a Craigslist ad for youth kids wanting to join a bass club or start a bass club. And, funny story. You guys know who Joe Thomas is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He lives 15 minutes down the road. And at the time, all I saw was Bassmasters on ESPN and then Steele's Reel in the Outdoors. And he had another show back then. I was like, it was his wife had made a Craigslist ad for his son was wanting to find some kids to start a bass club. I was like the first one that called, right? And next thing I know, it's been a month since I started bass fishing. I didn't have a good spinning rod, didn't know the first thing about a bait caster, didn't know anything, right? And next thing I know, I'm in Joe Thomas's living room at a meeting with a bunch of youth kids, and this is before the youth club thing was even a movement at that point, And so me and him ended up being the president, vice president. Started the first youth club in Cincinnati and one of the first in Ohio at the time. And that was an amazing experience because, here I am. And at the time, Joe was fishing the Elite Series still. And so I'm looking at boxes and boxes of Lucky Crafts in this basement and wall mounted 10-pounders. And he's got an I-class in the garage, and he's got this spread, right? 5-10 acre lake. I don't even know. And I'm like, this is a real thing. And little did I know that he's 1 in a million. But at the time as a kid, it was like, wow, we ran with it till I was 17. So 4 or 5 years, we had a local club around the area that took us out. And that's actually where I met Bill Lowen. We'll get into that at some point, because I'd love to, give him the props that he deserves from helping me out along the way. But it was that's kind of how it started, and at that point nothing else mattered. It was bass fishing, and that was it, man.
Well, I mean, I'm sure your parents appreciated you not running around, and the only tail you were chasing was the ones on the bed, you know what I mean? Not those ones, but
we were chasing tail on the bed too.
Yeah, it was a different bed.
Still well, yeah, you say that, but then it was kind of like I got older, and then that's when everything changed a little bit.
Sure,
get back to where I wanted to be, So
during that time, what was your youth club's name? Did you guys have a name?
I think we were just a Cincinnati Youth Bass Club at the time.
Okay.
It's actually still going on now. Like I said, I had been out. I mean, I left at 17, so that was 2008. Because I actually I started fishing the Federation as a boater at that point. So my I got a good family, dude. They've done so much for me, and we'll get into that too and how everything came about. But my dad was like, "Hey, you want a truck, or do you want to drive my truck and I buy you a boat?" And I'm like, for my 16th birthday, right? And I'm like, you got a truck and mom's got an expedition. Like, I want a boat. And, I was thinking he was going to go out and buy me a used, like, at the time, I'm like, buy me a used, boat, and I come home and he's got a Nitro 750. Looking back on it, it's hilarious. He bought he had an open bow, like cruiser, my dad did. And he goes down to the same marina that sold Nitro at the time. And he buys a dual console 17 footer, dude. And you talk about 90 horsepower. And I mean, I'll never take it for granted because it was beautiful. It was a brand new boat. And I'm like stoked. And none of my friends have that. But I'm like, God, there's no room in this thing. And I'm a big guy, even at 16, I was a big kid. And I'm like, but yeah, I can't believe I'm complaining about that. But yeah.
Little Jaws moment. We're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah. So I had that. So anyways, I took that boat and when I turned 17, I'm like, I think I can. I went out, I fished as a co-angler in the Federation because they still allowed you to fish as a youth and fish as a co-angler. And, I don't want this to sound bad, but at 17, I'm like, I can kick these guys' ass. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I can beat these guys on these places around Ohio. Because I don't know if you guys have ever fished Ohio besides Lake Erie.
Well,
I have. I hear it's not very good.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my question. I think you're getting into it, but what bodies of water did you cut your teeth on when you were growing up?
There's a lake, I live 15 minutes from a place it's called Caesars Creek. It's off of 71 if you're heading north. And it's actually really good now. It's got some grass in it, but back in the day, it was like the Dead Sea. Well, I would get out of school and my dad's cousin lived across the street. And if my dad wasn't home from work or my mom, he would hook my boat up and we would just go and I'd fish till dark every day after school. And they were stocking muskie. And it was already a bad bass lake. So trust me, when I say cut your teeth, it's like, dude, you fish all week to catch 2 bass. And
wow,
it was like such a grind. And then I started to figure it out, so there, and then there's another place that's really good. It's one of the best lakes in Ohio. It's called Rocky Fork. It's, springtime, takes mid 20-pound bags to win. And then I fished Lake Erie a lot when I got, in my later teens. I fished up there, and it's kind of where I started deciding I wanted to get into bigger tournaments because I got comfortable doing, because there's not a lot of adversity in Ohio. You know what I mean? It's there's not a lot of lakes that have grass. There's not a lot of, you're flipping laydowns, dude, and cranking. That's it. There's not a lot. You might drag a little bit, but it's
like Central North Carolina without the big fish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that was. But anyways, I started fishing. I had to bail out of the youth because I wanted to fish as a boater in the Federation. So my last year of eligibility as a youth, I gave up to fish one Federation tournament, and I finished 10th. So I was like, on the river. I was like, yeah, whatever, cool. So, it worked out, I guess, at some point.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So, and then we got into fishing the opens and after high school, and we can get into that too. You guys can talk a little.
We're gonna get into all of it, man. I mean, we want you doing more of the talking than us. So, I mean, obviously, you got out of the youth stuff because you wanted to be a boater. Where was the first lake that you fished as a boater? What was the first lake?
It was Gallipolis, between Gallipolis Pool on the Ohio River, which is by Point Pleasant, where the Mothman deal went down. I don't know if you ever heard of that whole crazy story.
What's that?
So we have now had chupacabras
on that.
It's now we're going to talk about the Mothman. Yeah, they made a movie about the Mothman.
But yeah, I had I went and fished.
You never heard of the Mothman?
No.
I'll tell him. Go ahead. I'll tell the story.
Crazy.
We'll finish the fishing
All
story,
right,
and then we'll
fishing.
give Trey the Mothman.
Yeah, I fished that pool on the Ohio River. I'd never been there before. Didn't really. I mean, I think it took 8 pounds to win it. I finished 10th with a 3-pound smallmouth. You're not talking about exciting stuff when you're talking about fishing the river or anywhere in Ohio, really.
It reminds me a lot of what our friends tell us about New Jersey. Just not a lot happening. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, Ohio's got a really good springtime pretty much everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Catch a lot of numbers. But to be honest with you, I know this sounds crazy, man, but I don't do a lot of fishing around home anymore because it's just
sucks.
Well, it doesn't sound crazy at all. It sounds like
You can say it. It sucks.
it sucks. I'll fish a few local lakes from like it's supposed to be in the 70s all week. My father-in-law went out to Rocky Fork today, and it was like the water temp was like 42. I'm like, I told you, because it just got 70 over the weekend. I'm like, dude, it's gonna take a week and a half, 2 weeks for them fish to get right, and he just couldn't wait, and he's out there cranking in 40-degree water. I'm like, so that's his MO. That's what he likes.
He's not throwing a buzz bait.
I don't even know if he knows how. I don't know how he does.
Oh man. Hey, you're like every Midwesterner, man. Like I guess Ohio's considered part of the Midwest, isn't it? Is it considered Midwest?
I would say Western Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So I mean, being from Michigan myself, like we just threw spinning rods all the time, and we threw rooster tails, and we thought everything was always on the bank and stuff like that. Other than like, I don't know, when you're out there in the middle doing ice fishing and stuff. So I don't blame him for getting out there in 40-degree water and cranking and stuff like that. But I also don't blame you for not fishing around there either. So,
yeah, it's not. It's just, man, I tell you what it is. As you go on these, you're like on the NPFL, man. You go these places, and even at their worst, they're so much more exciting to fish than here. It's like you just get to see and do things you don't. And I think that's why you don't see a lot of professional anglers from this state, because you have to be real versatile, and I'm starting to really feel that. I tell my family, and it's like, if I'm not, I hate saying it, if I'm not gone on the water every weekend on a good fishery, you can't get better fishing these mud holes up here in Ohio. It's just, you can be the best guy in Ohio there is. You can win every derby, cherry pick them all, and kick everybody's butt. But that's because the lake. It's not like there's so much out there that I think a lot of guys around this area haven't experienced, and
you're 100% right, dude. 100%. Yeah. We see it all the time here in North Carolina. We see it all the time. I see it all the time. I saw it back in Michigan. You got guys that can win on a single lake every single time they go out there. And we're going to get into it a little bit later, but the versatility in being able to face adversity and changing weather conditions and changing fish patterns and the lakes and all that stuff. Like when you take a guy from your central North Carolina that wins on Bugs Island every single tournament, and you take him down to Toledo Bend, you're taking him to Florida, right? He gets his butt whooped sometimes, right? There's a couple exceptions to that. Josh Hooks is one of them.
He also fished all over country in college. So.
Yeah, and he can catch them.
That dude's awesome, by the way. Like, he's such a good dude. I'll just have to put that in.
Yeah,
Dad's
awesome. Daddy Josh.
Dad Josh.
But anyways,
but before we go too far, so we've had Chupacabra.
Yep,
we've had Mothman.
Yeah, what's Mothman?
So anybody in this room, Dylan, or anybody listening, if you know a bass angler that can tell a story that somehow involves Bigfoot, we need you. Because we're going to try to hit the trifecta of cryptids in North America. And then we just need a Jersey Devil story. But the Mothman was a Mothman, like half moth, half man, had big moth wings, glowing red eyes. And supposedly in that area of Ohio, some people saw him on a bridge. And then like 3 days later, the bridge collapsed and killed all these people. So then like somebody else saw him and somebody died in a car wreck. So it turned into this whole thing that if you see the Mothman, like your time's coming to an end.
I know what it is. It's not the Mothman. It's meth, man. That's how
it could have just been Seth Ellis.
Hold on.
You gotta tell him this was in meth man might work out.
This was like in the 1960s. I don't even think meth was around.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think it still could have been Seth.
It was peyote.
It might have been Seth Ellis.
I think there was like there was an army base or something where they were doing like chemical testing in the area. So it kind of like made it like grabbed more attention because people thought that like they were like experimenting with chemicals on like human beings.
Yeah. And the reality was like a train derailed.
Yeah.
So
I think all stories come from somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
We just
that
need a Bigfoot now.
the government probably wrote that story to get people to like.
Oh, here we
no
go.
way.
Here we go.
So if you Google it, there's a gigantic chrome statue of this thing in
No.
Yeah, and there's a museum. It's legit,
Oh my
bro.
gosh.
Yeah.
I gotta come up.
Well,
with
now put a note when you do the thumbname for this. Put Mothman on the thumbnail.
yeah, that'll be a good
Dude, I
one. dude.
don't want to be.
People are gonna be like, "What the
Dylan's new
Dylan
name.
Mothman
Hey,
Freeze?"
we got the
No,
Mothman,
I've
folks.
only been there the one time. Don't do that, dude.
Oh man. Well, hey, does Big Al have a catchphrase or a nickname for you when he come up on stage yet?
Are we getting into that already?
He will.
No. I just want to know. Do you have one right now?
This past week, is it windy yet, Dylan Freeze?
Okay. All right. Well, Big Al, listen to this. He's gonna name you the Mothman next time when you're.
He always goes OH and then compares me to a linebacker or something. I don't know. I don't get it.
That's fair.
I used to be a big guy, and I'm just fat. So
PHAT.
I feel that in my soul.
Hey, big guys need loving too, son.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you fished the BASS Nation, right? So what'd you do?
Federation.
Yeah, or a federation. I'm sorry. What did you do after high school? Like you graduated high school, right?
yeah. So I'll start.
It's okay if you don't.
No, I did. Yeah. Okay. So we're
bias,
gonna backtrack a little bit to start the story. So
Okay.
back in the day, the Elite Series allowed co-anglers.
Yep.
My parents thought I was a little more than I was, but they also wanted to give me every opportunity to learn and progress.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there was any other kids my age that ever got to do it. But when I was 16, I went down and I fished Kissimmee at a Camp Mac.
Mhm.
2006, I believe. No, 7. I was 16, so 2007. I got paired with Greg Gutierrez on day 1, old California guy. And then day 2, Fred Rambanis.
Nice. Boom,
He
boom.
smashed on him, dude. And 2
On
different
frog.
yeah, actually, dude, and
Oh,
punching
God.
mats. But two different like learning curves there, because that's when you learn like there's people that are in the sport that are different than others and have different
Mhm.
viewpoints on fishing with Kangler and don't. And man, me and Fred hit it off, and so it was cool. Like Billy was there, and I'd known Billy because Billy had come into the youth club with Joe and had been a boater a few times. Well, me and Billy had hit it off pretty well because I'm sure you know the backstory of like with his best friend dying.
Mhm.
My dad had a humongous softball team, traveling sponsor, or it was Freeze Concrete was he had a concrete business, and that's what I do now. I took that over. But he played he had a big softball team and traveled the country. They were one of the best in the country for years, 20 years. And they actually hit that guy's family, Billy Backman's family, had a memorial tournament. My dad actually had won it a few times in Cincinnati. And so when we met him, my dad had a couple medals that were Billy Backman memorial medals. And we were down there in Florida. My dad actually took one with us, and we gifted it to Billy. And we weren't really good friends yet at that point because I was still a kid. So, that was kind of just a little sentimental, like we just had like a little tiny connection there. And at least to me at the time. But then, so fast forward, I graduated high school. My parents fly Fred and Julie Rambanis to Ohio from Oklahoma. I know that's crazy, right?
What?
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is a true story, man.
Will he be my dad?
Yeah. So so they stay for the 3 days, have my graduation party, and my graduation present. So my family had bonds, $50 a birthday, $50 a Christmas, and they, accumulate interest when you're a kid.
Mhm.
And I get out of school, I'm like, I have like $15,000,
Mhm.
So my parents are like, hey, we want, you to be, you want to chase this fishing stuff. And they had worked out a deal with Billy, and Billy brought an I-class to my graduation party.
No kidding.
It was his first ever free rig he ever got from Skeeter. It was the 2008 21i, and I'm getting a little emotional talking about that. But yeah, man, it was so it was, hey, we're gonna go full force at this. So we take Fred Romanis out on the lake that I can't catch nothing on, and he proceeds to just smash on him on a damn spook. And and it was a really cool thing, and it's something I'll always remember. And actually, I have the very snag-proof frog that Fred won Lake Murray on.
Really?
Yeah, I have it out in the shop on the wall with a nail through it because I'm never letting it go. It's right through the eyelet or the hook, whatever. And it's it's the custom painted snag-proof frog, all torn to shreds that he caught. If you ever look back at that tournament, I think he caught an 8-pounder, which back then Murray wasn't what it is now. And
right.
Yeah, that was when they killed the grass and messed that lake up for all that years.
He called her something, and I got the frog he caught it on. He brought it with him, and so yeah, that was a little short intro on that. But we went straight into the opens, dude. I mean, I'm sorry, I should take that back. I fished co-angler for a year.
In the opens,
Northern Opens for 1 year or 2 years in school, like junior and senior year, and I fished the Northern Opens as a co-angler. And I'm like, man, and that's how much bass fishing's evolved, because I look back on it now, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have been in my mid to late 20s, early 30s then.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to sound really ignorant, but I feel like it was so much easier back then to make it to that level.
Well, I mean, you talk to, if you hear guys like Ike and Ellie and guys that are now in the, getting to the end of their career and getting into the Hall of Fame and everything, they've all said, like, I don't know if I would be what I am if it weren't for when we came into it. Kevin Van Dam has said it. Like, I don't know.
That was the prime, dude.
Like, we literally came into professional bass fishing when they just hit it right. It's kind of like people that take off on social media. Like, the first YouTubers who blow up. Like, they got into it at the exact right time.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm with you.
And here's I'll put it to you this way. This is how crazy this can sound. So back then, a lot of people don't know now, like how qualification worked back then. So you fish 3 tournaments in any series, right? And they did double qualifications because of Elite Series guys. And they went down the line to like 18th place back in the day. So like if you were in the top 18 in points and there was like, let's say 1 through 8 were elite guys, you had a berth. And that's actually how that worked back in the day. Because there was a guy named Brent Broderick that lived down the road. He finished 17th in points in the Northern Opens. Next year, he's on the Elite Series. And what's crazy is the following. So my second year, my first year is where I kind of got comfortable too quick. I think the first year we went to Champlain. And where else? Erie, Champlain, I think. Wait, I don't even remember. Chesapeake Bay, which, God, I hate that place. Chesapeake Bay, Champlain, and somewhere else. And then I like bombed every one of them, obviously, because like I had no idea what I was doing at that point. And then the next year I really regrouped and was like, hey, I'm going to make a run at this. But I met some guys from your neck of the woods up in Kalamazoo. Jonathan Van Dam, Luke Gritter, Kyle Kempkers. I ran around with those guys for 2 years in the opens. I actually met them at Champlain. And I'll never, ever, ever in a million years say I didn't love every moment of what was going on at that time. But being a 20-year-old kid, not established at all. And you start hanging out with guys who Luke Gritter had qualified for the elites already at that point. JVD was JVD, regardless. And then you're hanging out with Mike McClellan and Swindle and these guys. And I hung out with a bunch with Casey Ashley and Marty Robinson and all amazing guys, man. And super cool guys. But man, I just got in over my head and started partying a little too much. And with, guys that are established can do what they want, man. But when you're 20 and you're out there on mom and daddy's money and you and fishing at that point, midway year 2 had come, was like the back burner. I was like, I ruined myself, man. I really did. I too fast. I didn't even pay attention to what I was doing. I just, I started not caring. I just wanted to be there. I wanted to hang out with the guys. Like, who don't at 20 years old at that time want to say, yeah, man, I went out and had dinner and had some beers with Marty and Casey and these guys. And I'm like, because they're my name dropping. Should I not be doing that?
No, you're
good.
fine, dude. You're rolling with. They're your
Like,
role
yeah,
models.
I mean, like you're literally hanging out with dudes you looked up to. Like,
and
you're having the opportunity
dude,
to drink beers with them.
And dude, like I'm watching Swindle and McClellan play Chinese fire drill at every red light on the way to the bar at the ramp at Champlain. I'm like, what? My mom and dad are at the hotel, and dude, I got back and I'm 20 and I've had a few, and I'm like, they're like, why are you laughing? And I remember I just fell down on the bed and I'm like, I just had the best night of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm watching these guys get up there and sing karaoke, and I'm like, dude, like I'm hanging out with these guys. Like they're calling me Hammer and Meat and Big Dog, and it's like you
goes to your head.
Without even thinking you
lose sight of the goal. Yeah.
And next thing I know, I'm like, my practices are going bad, and so the next year, I guess that was if I was year 1. Year 2, I'm like, dude, I'm not doing this again. Like, so we started out at James River. I caught like an 8-pounder in practice, I remember, and I'm like, I caught a couple good ones, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna do good in this. I finished like 70th, and this is where I want to get back to like the points and stuff. Finished like 70 something, and then we went to Sandusky Bay, my neck of the woods. I had an awesome practice. They sent us out bass back then. It was iffy and I don't want to throw shade on bass, but like, dude,
different times, man.
Bro, I speared a 12. I'm not lying, and this is gonna sound stupid. A 12-foot wave. Like I come around Kelly Island, heading all the way up to Canada, and it was a northwest wind, and I come around Kelly Island with a coangler, and I went directly through a 12, maybe not 12, a 10 for sure. The biggest wave I've ever seen in my life. Like something that comes off the bow of a damn Carnival cruise ship, bro. And I go through it, and I mean, I had the juice, dude. I was running almost an hour. I had 25 pounds guaranteed. Like, and I know no one had it back then. Like, I mean, I didn't have side scan on my boat back then, dude. I had like an X83 Lowrance or whatever they were called.
Yeah.
I got this yacht.
Like X5.
And I got like a yacht of an
I-class.
Yeah, so I'm out there just like dudes are like, oh, and I'm just like, jumping and
just
I'm
saying
like, I don't care. I'm 20 years old. I'm like, I don't care.
I got this battleship and we're gonna let her eat.
Yeah, like send it wasn't even a phrase right at this point. So but I think I might have had part in making that at that point. But I remember I went through that wave and I looked at my coangler, dude, and my entire boat is full of water. And he's like, we're going to sink. And I'm like, shut your mouth. We're not going to sink. He's like, he's praying to God. He goes, no. He's like telling his family he loves them and like praying to the heavens. And I'm like, we got it, dude. And I remember looking at him, like that viral video it's out, like Rangers don't sink or whatever. I'm like, you can't sink a skater. And there's crankbaits floating, there's hooks floating. I mean, the water's up to our knees. It was the craziest thing I ever. And I remember looking at him and I said, we're going back. And a largemouth fish the first day and had like 13. Finally got out there the second day and like I dumped like 20 plus on them. And but I had like 3 dead fish and it really killed me. But that's what I was getting to with disqualifications is I remember sitting at home. I had a girlfriend at the time, man, and I made a really bad decision. I was going through some personal stuff at home with my family, and I was like, I'm not going to fish Oneida. Well, I didn't go to Oneida. If I'd have finished 48th or higher at Oneida with double qualifications that year, I'd have finished like 14th in points because of all the guys. Because back then, not those guys cherry picked, so there wasn't everybody was fishing every open. So there was only like 60 guys that fished all 3. Well, 30 of them were Elite Series guys.
Yep.
And so I did the math on the points, and I remember my mom looking at me and going, "What are you going to do now?" And my dad was they had a place up at Indian Lake, which is a little central Ohio lake, and my dad was gone for the weekend. And to this day, it's the worst decision I ever made in my life. I took my boat to Sean Weeda at Weeda's Marine and sold it.
No kidding.
Wow.
And that was it for Dylan Freeze for over a decade.
Wow.
And that, I mean, dude, it hit me so hard knowing that. Yeah, because you don't ever have opportunities like that, man. And then you realize, man, you really didn't even do anything to get that opportunity. I mean, hell, dude, I had a 70th, a 50th, or a 49th, I think. And then, like, if I'd have just had another top 50, well, you look at the points, so many guys dropped out of that tournament because they were out of contention. They didn't even go. So there was only like 101 people in the damn tournament.
Huh.
And it ruined me. Like, I was 21 at this point. I just turned 21, and that girl was gone real quick. Well, this way, thank God, I ended up meeting my fiance, and life moved on. But yeah, that was just a really hard time in my life, man. That's kind of where I veered off the path for a grip, and it took me a long time to get back to where we are now, man.
Well, hold on a minute. So what year was that you took your boat to Weeda's and just said sell it?
That would have been, it was the following year. It was like 6 months later. It was June of 2012.
Okay. So do you really believe that was the worst decision that you ever made? Or what's the silver lining with that? Right? Because you were 21 years old. Yep. You were out there.
We're thinking the same thing. I think
you obviously were making some decisions, whether or not good, bad, or indifferent. I don't think we ever make the right decision. We just make a decision. If it's good, it's good. It's bad, it's bad. We don't know until it happens.
Right.
But in retrospect, looking back on a 21-year-old Dylan Freeze who was out there, and you said you were on your mom and dad's money, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're out there on your mom and dad's money. You're running with all these guys. You're fishing. You're not doing terrible. You're not doing the best, but you're not doing terrible.
All right.
You made a decision. Was it really the worst decision, though? Because now look at where you're at.
I look at it too. Like, you were 21, man. You weren't giving your best effort in the opens, partying. Do you really think the elites would have been the place for you to be at that time? Because it probably would have got worse when you were running around with all them guys.
Man, well, and absolutely not. And I understand what you're saying. And I think when I say it's the worst decision I ever made, I guess I contribute that to where it led me for the next, let's see, what year, what the hell year is it? 2025 now?
2025.
It is now, yeah.
So 2024. So, dude, I got back into bass fishing in 2022. Like, so, dude, you're talking 10 years of just straight, I mean, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it, man. Off the rails, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just, I worked for my dad. So from the time I was 13, every summer, every weekend, I poured concrete with my dad. Graduated high school. So every weekend moment I wasn't fishing, I was pouring concrete. And so you can imagine your surroundings in the construction industry, and you don't have any direction, man. And so bass boats went, beer came, other stuff came.
That's the construction world,
yeah, and motorcycles, Harleys came. A lot.
That was it. Your dad? Oh, it didn't matter. Was it your dad's company too, or were you all working?
My dad's had a concrete my entire life. No.
Okay.
It's been Freeze Concrete. So my entire family, just a little history, my entire family in Cincinnati, my grandma's side, on my dad's side, they were all concrete masons, concrete guys. And then my dad's side were all excavators, the entire family. There was like 9 brothers on each side. I mean, huge construction family. and really, really highly recommended, like, my last
Had a
name.
good reputation.
Yeah, and good and bad. My last name in Cincinnati, or not in Cincinnati, but the town of Mason that I was from was synonymous with a lot of stuff, good and bad. And I felt like that, and I used that as a crutch when I got in my later 20s, man. And I had a chip on my shoulder, man, for a long time, and it was stupid, But yeah, so I worked with my dad forever till 2020. I just made the decision that we were butting heads a lot. It was just, I was off the rails. It was at the point in my life where I was ready to do my own thing, even though I wasn't mentally there.
Were you back to fishing yet or no?
No.
Okay.
And that was another thing that really, when I say it was a worse decision, because that was part of where a lot of me and my dad went south. We're great now, but man, when you work with your dad every day, and your dad, every time a concrete driver comes up or a waitress at lunch, all your dad does is talk about how much he loves you and bass fishing, and he brags about what you're doing, and my boy's this and he's going to do that. And it's sometimes tough to have those conversations with your father and about really what that means to you. So there was a lot of letdown there, when I decided to just drop it after all him and my mom had done for me. It was real hard for a long time for me to cope with it, man. Like, I mean, it was a struggle, because everything I did at that point for those 10 years, it was always came back to, in my mind, I was never going to satisfy my dad or make him happy for what I was, because all he ever wanted for me was what he knew I wanted, and that was bass fishing. And I just nuked it. I mean, so, I've been with Jessica since 2000, fall of 2011 into 12. We have 2 beautiful kids now, and we've been through a lot, struggles together. I don't know how in the hell she's still with me. She's a saint, man. And, but yeah, it was just, it was really hard, man, to get back to, all things happen for a reason. Right. And this is really what I know we're dragging, man. I don't want to.
No, you're good.
No, you're good, dude.
This is important stuff, man.
I think people don't ever tell how they got to places and why they're there. And, Pete, we talked about that video when we were in the before we started, but I think it's going to come out because I think it's part of the reason I'm here. So, I never thought I was ever going to get back to fishing again, ever. And I did a job for a guy, a concrete job, a traded work, and he had a 03 like ZX 225 or something. He wanted like 10 grand for. And I said, yeah, well, the job was like 15,000. I said, why don't you trade me the boat and fit that 5 will cover my expenses. So I'll do the job for the boat. Right. And this was 2022 summer. And now, mind you, I haven't touched a rod for a decade. All of it gone. Like, I didn't have nothing.
No tackle, no rods, no nothing.
Old junk that was out there collecting dust. It had trilene on it for 15 years, old Rebos and stuff. Yeah. So
Jitterbugs and what?
That old trolley was weed whacker string, man.
I had stuff out there I dug up, and I'm like, oh, that's a treasure now. But so, I trade the job and I get the boat, and instantly, man, I'm like, I gotta get on the water. Well, we're just gonna put it out there. So, man, I had gotten a DUI. We're just gonna say it. I'd gotten a DUI because I think it's important for people to know what people go through. So I had gotten a DUI around this time, being an idiot. And I do, I have my own business. So I got lucky and was able to have, privileges to drive. So I do that, and I buy the boat. And that's when the video happens. The TikTok video with the Bengals game. So they put you on probation when you get a DUI, right? And I make the video at the Bengals game. And I feel like that happened I feel like all this happened because of that moment. I think that moment happened to get me here. I don't know if you guys have ever had, I know this is going to sound really crazy. I don't know if you've ever had moments in your life or experiences you just can't explain, see things you can't explain, hear things you can't explain. I wasn't supposed to be drinking at that Bengals game. If you want to put the link in the description of this video, because people are going to be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But
I'm sure they're going to Google it.
So I do the video, right? And I remember going up that escalator half crocked, and I just had this weird feeling. And if you've ever seen it or you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. The things I said in that video are real crazy. Like they were spot on to what happened that night. And it was, I've told people this and they were like, you're crazy. You were just drunk. I'm like, no, man, you don't understand. Like, I remember I was going up the escalator and it was the Bengals Dolphins game. First whiteout Bengals that ever had. The white uniforms, white helmets. It was sick. And I'm getting this voice in my head, man. I'm going up this escalator at the Bengals game. And man, it was like, you ever had that moment when you're just like standing there and your ear rings and you like, It goes kind of like silent for a second. And then it's like, it echoes back and then you get the sound back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm in a crowd packed Bengals game on a Thursday night and that happens. But when it happened, it's like a little person was standing here whispering in my ear.
Yeah.
And give me chills thinking about it right now because I ain't talked to a lot of people about this, and it told me to the T what was getting ready to happen that night. And then lo and behold, I get to the top of that escalator, and I remember hearing that, and I'm like, I'm toast. Like, what am I doing? I'm like, I had way too many, dude. And I get to the top of that escalator, and lo and behold, there's this guy, Jack Coate, I think is his name. I think he either worked for Barstool Sports or had a little he does like an Instagram, TikTok sports analysis thing and sports take deal on the internet. And he's like, hey, dude, you look like a good time. You want to do an interview? And it was like he was standing there waiting on me. Out of all the people in this damn and I know it sounds crazy, man, but he takes me and we do this interview. And if you ain't seen it, prepare to be mind blown. Or just like that guy's an idiot. But so we do the interview, and I remember walking away, and my buddy's like, dude, my buddy that was there has got season tickets. He's like, you are out of your mind, dude. And I'm like, you just watch. And dude, I remember right before halftime when it happened, Tua Tagovailoa got hurt, and just like I said it, just like it happened, time it was going to happen, where it happened. And I remember he looked at me and goes, dude, you're the devil. and I had this weird like thing happen to where I just felt so horrible. Like man, like what in the world? I've never been religious, never been real spiritual, nothing. We got home that night and I didn't think anything of it, right? Well, I've got to do my DUI class the next week, get to the 3-day class and do all the stuff. If you ain't had one, good for you. But if you've had one, you know what I'm talking about. Well, we're all human. Well,
absolutely.
I had just gotten this boat and I'm planning to go fishing to Lake Norris with my father-in-law and on a trip. I'm at this class on a Friday, checking into a hotel, and I get a call from my probation officer. Hey, saw your video. I'm like, oh, shit.
Crap.
Like, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be drinking. So they put me on the alcohol monitor. And I'm not too ashamed to say this, man, because that's part of who you are. So I go on this fishing trip with this freaking alcohol monitor. I don't drink. Come home, and I might be telling too much, but whatever. People can like it or hate it. I come home they tested on a Monday. I didn't drink, do anything. It like read something wrong. End up spending my son's first Halloween in jail for a faulty test on an ankle monitor. And at that moment, you talk about being the most disappointed in yourself that you've ever felt in your life. You have nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, no one to talk to. Like, you just feel like the world's crashing down. And I'm like, I remember getting out of that the next day. They let me out. And I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. And that's why I was upset. I'm like, I didn't drink. I didn't do anything wrong. After I got this monitor, after I had done something wrong. And, it was the judge went to court, and the judge understood what was gone wrong. And they kind of just gave me a slap on the wrist. And I'm in there talking to that probation officer they assigned me. And I'm like, I'm really upset. I'm crying. I'm like, it's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, you don't understand. Like, I spent a night in jail and for something I didn't do. And it was because I went on a fishing trip and got back bass fishing. I was just getting back into bass fishing. Like, I just got this old boat and I'm like just dinging around with it, just trying to get my mind and myself out of the place I'd been for so long. And it landed me here. And I'm just like, what work? How do I work? What can I do right? Like, at this point, like, and, so we got through that moment, and so that boat turned into another used boat. I traded to Weedos, and then it turned into another one. And I'm like, you know what? So I fished the Federation in 22, I think, I have an older Triton I bought, and that was it. I fished a year's worth of Federation tournaments. I'm like, I'm going back. I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm like balls to the wall now. Like, I'm going either. I'm not doing it. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability and make it my life again. So that's what we did, man. I traded that boat in on a Camus, took a wish on a prayer that somebody would recommend my application with Brad in the NPFL. And lo and behold, I get a call because they couldn't fill the field, and here I am.
Well, hold on a minute. We're going to get into the NPFL. So
yeah,
you unpacked a lot for the audience, obviously for us here. When you got that boat, what'd you say?
I said, I like to go deep, brother.
Hey, that's what this is all about. Pete talked about it before the show, man. Like, we focus a lot on how the outdoors heals people.
We talk about mental health a lot, man.
It's a big deal, right? Everybody has trauma in their lives. A lot of people don't know how to get out of it, right? It's the last thing they remember. It's almost like the law of recency. Like, trauma just sticks with people and they don't know how to escape it. The outdoors is a great way, not for everybody, but for people like us to escape it. But was there a point in there, because you talked about your relationship with your dad kind of going south, when you got the boat, or when you started trading the boat and stuff and you got back into fishing, did that change your relationship with your father at all?
So I not initially, because I think he was, well, when you had an I class and then you don't fish for 10 years, then you show up with this old beater. He's like, what the hell are you going to do with that, son? That's the kind of look I felt like he gave me, like, oh, I'm glad you're getting into fishing, but because it all comes back to, man, what he gave me. And it was like, so, and I remember I had the conversation with Jess when I got, one night I said, I think I told her, I said, she didn't want me to do this for anyone's approval, but because I told her, I said, I think I've told myself this a lot. When I got the niche to want to pursue it again, it was one day I'm going to be standing on that stage or pull up in front of my old man and pull one out and and have that eye-to-eye moment. If I never get to win a trophy for him or whatever, it's one thing. But, like, I just wanted to see that happiness because it's what I owed to him. I felt like for what he had always given me, what he knew I truly wanted. And man, we got it last year at Pickwick. I didn't have like a stellar performance. But I finished middle of the pack, and I really wanted to do good in that tournament, and I was on the right stuff, but it didn't work out. But the last day I got to pull one out like a 6-pounder, and get to hear Big Al go, "There's the boom," with my name, and my dad's, standing there leaning on the thing, and my mom and dad and kids are there, and my wife or fiance, and it was just that moment, man. You always want, you always think about those moments, and now I fixate, and they say you can manifest your own, you manifest success if you want it bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
And now I find myself, so that moment came, and now it's, I in the back of my head, I still have the old part of you can't, if you're not going to produce and you're not doing good, like you feel like you're letting people down.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's on my dime, and it's on my time, and I have my own family, and so, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm going to, my old man ain't going to die before he sees me do something. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds harsh, but dude, like, hey, I'm a realist. Like, you're gonna tell me that you ain't had moments in your life where like you're like, hey, before I take my last breath, or somebody does it, they're gonna see me do something that they've always wanted me to see, wanted for me. And so now I find myself driving these events, and I'm driving down the road, and I'm just black out. I'm having I just thinking in these thoughts about when it's going to click, how it's going to click, when's that time going to come? I haven't even cashed a check in 7 events. I mean, it's tough, dude. And we'll get into that if we have the time, but like, it's like you sit and you just think about holding that trophy up and being emotional. Cause I'm an emotional guy, man. I'm a crier. I'm a lover. I'm a fighter. I'm like, what's that damn
the song?
That damn petty song, but like it's just one of the things. And now, like, every time I leave the house, those thoughts go through my head. If I have a good practice, I think about how I can capitalize on it and make it that moment. Or if I have a bad one, how it's going to turn around. People don't talk about the things they see in their heads. I think they keep that stuff bottled in because they're too embarrassed to talk about, oh man, I thought this, but now I finished 115th. Well, dude, good luck not. These guys are unbelievable.
Yep.
But there's going to be a time in every guy's life where he chases something long enough, or he wants something bad enough that not that the only thing stopping, there's nothing that's going to stop them. And when it's time, you hear that all the time. When it's your time, it's your time. And I hope to God that by the end of this thing for me, if and when it comes, as far as if something in my life happens to where I can't keep pursuing this or something else, that I can have the moment that I always wanted to have, and that's really what it's all about to me.
How did you learn about, the NPFL came on the scene about 5 years ago? So it's a relatively new organization. We have been massive supporters of the league since its inception. I really think like year 2, year 3 is really where we got hooked on it. But nevertheless, you get back into bass fishing 2021, 2022 timeframe. How do you learn about the league, and why the jump right into the national level instead of going through the opens or trying to fish major league fishing circuits?
Hold on one second. Hold on 1 second before you answer that. Let's take just like a 2-second break. All right. So we talked about, the Bengals video, which I know a lot of folks said. We took a quick break there, and Ben was like, was that this video? And I was like, that's the one. So he had remembered seeing it back in the day. Yeah. You ended up spending a night in jail for a false reading. which maybe was a blessing in disguise, looking back now. You talked about not being the most spiritual person or God fearing, any of that, but at any point as you've revisited these things happening, has it opened your eyes spiritually, or do you feel like that was some entity, whether you believe in God or not, that was talking to you and kind of trying to get you back on the right path?
Yeah, and I'm 100% a believer. So we can get that, but like it's not that I never believed in God. I wasn't like a churchgoer, and
Right.
my family wasn't real religious. I mean, you come in this house, if you're a saint in this house, you might burn. Put it that way. You know what I mean? We talk a lot of craziness around here. We don't bite our tongues, but there was, like I said, there was moments in my life, in those bad times where other things I couldn't explain happened, and life-saving events. I mean, a couple wrecked vehicles, just bad times, man. And there's some things that you just can't explain. Sometimes it happen. You like, how the hell am I not dead, or how did this not happen? And so yeah, I mean, there's a million things, but I think those were all prior to this happening. I think they were maybe just warning signs to a crash landing, but like the low fuel light was on a 747, and that video was the crash. But I feel like 100% it all happened to get me here. And that's why, and that's just part of, you hear so many like people's stories, and there's a lot of people that, I don't have that kind of life. I don't live like that. And I don't have these kind of issues. Well, may not see them, or they might not have it happen to you at this in this magnitude. But somebody's always watching out for you, man. And I'm a firm believer in that. Whether or not it's you recognize it at the moment. I don't know if I'm getting off keel for the question.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But yeah, I just it was. I remember, I've never been one to, I don't know where I'm going with this. I've never been real scared of making, of being. I'm not a bad person. Never really was. Like I've done dumb stuff. Like
we all have, brother.
But I find myself now, the older I get, and after all this has happened and we're here now, catching myself before I do something stupid. I got a bad temper when it comes to road. I don't have road rage, but
I do.
Stupidity in me, like I'm not the best driver.
I think we all do.
Yeah, and I don't. But like now, I'll say something in my truck in the privacy of my own vehicle, and I'm like, and then the little voice over here goes, "Why do you talk like that, dude? Like, it's gonna come back to bite you in the ass. Like, don't say that."
Trey's my little voice.
Yeah. So like, I find myself just really watching how, and I think that's part of that has brought me to my what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not at home here. I've got a couple buddies that I talk to, but I don't really veer from my family much anymore. Because I just feel like unless you got a lot of trust in the people you surround yourself with, or they share the same values as you, or understand the state of mind you've been in the past, there's a lot of people out there that don't think you're ever going to change who you are. And so to me, I had to cut those out of my life, and I talk to them, but I don't hang around with them. And that was where, like, before we started this with, I will get into it if we're going to do what we talked about, but just who you surround yourself with is a big key to life, man. I really think that people don't harp on that enough. I think it's who you are is who you are around is who you are, man.
Yes, sir.
And I know that sounds dumb, like everybody's their own person, but listen, man, if you're at a boat ramp and you only hang out with one group of guys, and that group of guys, no matter if you're a bad guy or not, they got a bad rap.
You're a bad guy.
Better find a new group quick.
No, you're right.
Bury you before you get off the ground.
Mhm.
And like I said, we'll continue into that later. But yeah, I mean, all those events that took place, I feel like happened to get me where I'm at now, and that's why I did you ask about how? Was there a question I missed there? Getting why we jumped into NPFL? Or are we going to do that another time?
We're gonna get to that.
We're going to get to that. So for those listening, if you're here, we took a little break. We had some pretty heavy stuff we talked about there with Dylan kind of telling his downfall, getting out of fishing. And someday I'm going to share my story, and there might even be a new podcast someday that we can go into some of this stuff, because it doesn't always fit with what we do here, but this absolutely does, because fishing is the central. It's sort of the cause of the spiral, and it's what's brought you out of the spiral. But to your point about, the people you surround yourself with, it's 100,000% true. Trey and I, Ben, we've all said it on here. Like, our circle's very small. I don't associate with too many people. And the people that I do associate with are all people that I would take to my mom's house for Sunday dinner. It's not the people I used to run around with, because those folks expect you to act a certain kind of way, and they promote that, right? Like your previous group of friends was promoting what you were doing, and they were helping you do what you were doing, and that's not who you are, who you want to be. So you've separated yourself, and doesn't mean you don't have to not talk to those people. To your point, you said you still talk to them, right? Like, you don't have to cut people out of your life all the time if you recognize that they're an issue, if you spend time with them, which you have.
Right. And yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I had something I wanted to ask while we were going through that, but it was so good I can't remember what it was.
I'll just, while you think about that, there's a lot of we didn't talk a lot about fishing. We talked a little bit about fishing, but I think that this episode, which we're going to consider this part 1, and there's going to be a part 2 to this, and that's going to be more on the NPFL and what's current in your life. But I think it's hard to make yourself vulnerable to unpack everything that's been going on in your life, right? Like, and we didn't have a script. We never have a script in our shows, but I think it's important for all of our listeners, especially those who are sitting there and having these thoughts about, like, man, am I making the best decisions possible? Like, if I do have the end in mind, which is maybe fishing professionally or owning a concrete company or doing whatever, am I making the choices that are going to set me up for success? And I'm right here with you, bro. Like, I've literally surrounded myself with people that are no longer in my life anymore. Same thing. I got a DUI a long time ago, and it was a life-changing event for me, right? I've cut best friends out of my life that I no longer talk to anymore because of the toxicity that surrounded them, and the fact that I know my wife and my family are empaths, and they can feel the energy around me, and it was turning them away from me. Right. So there's a lot of stuff, and I haven't talked about my life, and I'll do that when I officially retire from the Army. But the reality is it's hard for a lot of us, and sometimes we use the fame and the glory, or the fishing and the tournaments and all this stuff to conceal what's really going on in our lives. Right. Because it's easy to get there behind the camera and say, yeah, dude, I'll wait some fishing. But behind the cameras, you're like, man, this is a hard life, dude. And we're going to get in that in the second segment of this episode. So, Pete, did you remember what you was going to say now?
Yeah, he kind of answered the question I had now, and I thought about it about, like, have you disassociated with people that were in your life at that time? But to that point, like, in that decade period where you completely walked away from the sport of bass fishing and fishing in general, did you ever think about it? Like, was it ever in the back of your mind, like, man, I should do this again?
So, dude, what's crazy is, so the year I got out of fishing, we had my wife, Jess, my fiance. I just call her my wife from here on out, because that's all I call her anywhere else. So She was in her freshman year of college. So her first semester, she went and had got a dorm. And, I'm like, hey, why don't we just get an apartment? Like, we're serious enough. Like, so we got an apartment. My best friend, who I fished every day with, who grew up in downtown Cincinnati, didn't have all the luxuries that I did in life. The guy that we fished everything together. He's my best friend. A guy I didn't talk to for that entire decade because I wasn't who I needed to be, and I just was a real piece of. I'm just gonna say it, I was a piece of shit. I just wasn't there for the people that truly mattered. And thank God, he took me back into he took me back in to be a part of his life again now. But that guy was fishing as a co-angler. So it's a funny story. We're going to jump back. So this guy, I talked about fishing the James River, right? My last year with the Open. He went down and practiced with me, stayed with me. We all hung out with everybody. His boater for that tournament was staying at the hotel. So when I got up and I left, I assumed he was getting ready to get up and leave, and because he had plans worked out with his guy, and I didn't even check. And I get a phone call with him on the water like an hour later, thinking he broke down. He never got out of bed. And so the next year, I had pulled myself out of all this, and I'm sitting at home watching Bassmaster Live because he's in contention to win the James River as a co-angler. And he did. He won the next year as a co-angler. And dude, you talk about just a shot right in the nuts. It was in the gut, and I mean, it took the life out of me. And I don't think I've to this day told him that. And it had nothing to do with him. But watching, I felt so good I was so happy for him, right? But to leave the sport in the fashion that I did, as far as just my mental state and where I was at, and walk away from it. And less than a year later, I'm watching my best friend, who I fished everything with, who I was in the youth club with. We did everything together. We spent every weekend. He didn't have a car, and he'd get on a Greyhound to go to Kings Island, and I would go pick him up at the amusement park here in Cincinnati. From downtown to there, I'd go pick him up so we could get up and go fishing the next morning. And he wins. Yeah, it was his co-angler, but I'm sitting here watching him hold this trophy, right? And it was hard, and I broke down.
Was it guilt for not being there?
Yeah, guilt for that, and just I'm not gonna lie, I was jealous, bro. Because I'm like, I just gave up this, and my boy's winning.
Yeah,
what am I doing? And I remember her telling me, because I was sobbing. I was just so mad I wasn't there. And I wasn't there. I wish I'd have been there in two fashions. I wish I'd have been there fishing, and I wish I'd have been there to give him a hug. And I called him, and we were still talking at that point. But then I kind of just went off the beaten path, and we just kind of lost touch for a while. And but yeah, there was moments. That was the first moment. It was pretty quick, right? Back to your question, like that moment was like the gut shot. But I think at the same time, I put up a huge blocker after that. I done felt what it's going to be like, and I think that was part of the reason I didn't even watch it anymore.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was your involvement? Did you watch? Did you read? Did you follow? Or you just cold turkey cut bass fishing out of your life?
Yeah, I watched the Classic every now and then. I'd check on Billy Lowen to see how he was doing in fishing. But I didn't even talk to Billy. I just vanished from all my friends that in the world that I wasn't anybody, but around here I felt like I was. I was friends with a lot of guys. I fished the Federation, always did well. And then and then in these years that I'm not there, my boy's going and he's fishing, 2 national championships, a team national championship. He won an open. He almost made the classic, and I wasn't there for any of it.
Mhm.
And I looked, and I didn't realize how good of a friend he was at the time because we were young kids, and you get older, and man, I remember calling him and talking about fishing, and he took me out like 2 falls in a row. We went fishing up at Erie, and I, teased the idea of coming back and fishing. He's like, "Do it, man." And then I was just, and then we hit it off again, and I got back into fishing. It was like nothing ever changed. But there was times where, like, when I got back into fishing, one of my first phone calls was to Bill Lowen, and I said, "Hey, dude," and he's like, "Hey, I tell you what happened. I ran into him. I went down to the Sport and Boat Show in Cincinnati, and he was on a hog trough doing a seminar, and I just sat there and waited on him. And I remember walking over, and I was like, "Hey," yelled up to him, and he's like, "Holy shit, what's up?" Like, and he's like, got done with the seminar, and I was standing there waiting, and he came up and gave me a big hug, and I'll tell you how that was such a good feeling, but kind of emotional for me. But I mean, he was one of the first people I contacted when I got back into fishing, and I had a decent year back into the federation, and kind of like got my feet wet again. I'm like, oh man, I can still do this. But then the NPFL showed up, and it was because I remember seeing Randy Kukrow, a buddy of mine from Ohio that fished the NPFL a couple inaugural years. He's a real good buddy of mine.
Randy's a great guy.
Great human being.
Gigantic. I actually just funny story. My wife and I were in Dollar General the other day, and I saw the Crossbow magazine with him on the cover with one of them great big 200+ inch deer he's killed in the last couple of years. So we bought it, and I sent him a picture.
I want to give him a shout out because, man, he doesn't get enough recognition for what he's done the last 3 years with those deer. But so yeah, I knew about it with that, and I called Bill. I said, "Hey, what do you think about the NPFL?" And he said, that trail's gaining a lot of traction, man. And I'm like, what the hell? I think I come home from dinner one night, and I'm like, I'm going to put the application, and I highly doubt they're even going to give me an email back or a response. And so, yeah, I mean, 10 years without even doing it, and I cram it all back into a year and a half, and I remember I'm sitting at home, and I hadn't checked my email for like weeks because, like, I don't do email really either. I'll get on there, check my credit, check my, stuff like that, check my, track orders, stuff like that. But all my work stuff's done through a separate email. And I remember I saw an email from the NPFL.
Boom. This is where I want you to stop, Dylan.
Okay.
This is where I want you to stop.
Okay. This
is where we're going to pick up. Folks listening right now, you get an email from the NPFL, and folks listening, this has been a story leading up to this moment right here, and we're gonna I don't want anything talked about.
That's what I'm talking about, boy.
So Dylan, we're gonna give you an opportunity on the next episode to plug everything that you want to plug, to include socials and all those supporters. But I think the most important thing that came out of the episode, this segment 1, is all the mental fortitude and the resiliency, the adversity that you faced, and the honesty, right? I think it takes a big man, a big woman to be honest about the things that they've endured and how hard it is in life in general. And, giving up some of the things that you love the most, right? One of those is making your dad proud.
Yeah.
Right. Fishing was part of that. So I want to get into that in the next episode. So before we end this, what do you guys got?
Man, I just want to thank you, dude, for coming on here. I know we talked before we started recording, and you were a little hesitant about some of the stories. And I just want to say, man, like we're 3 strangers to you, but you're a brother now. And I appreciate you being open and honest, because one, it helps us to hear stories. Like, We'll talk, and I'll tell you my story, but we have a lot of parallels, man. Like just things that we did in life, and it's going to help people. I want you to know that, like, the people that listen to our show, we're going to get feedback from this, and this is going to help people get through some stuff. So I just appreciate you being willing to be open and honest and open up, your soul and what you've experienced, and it's just yeah, I don't know what else to say, man. I appreciate it.
Dylan,
I appreciate you guys giving me the
stay.
opportunity.
Well, it ain't over yet, so stay on the line with us. We're gonna close this bad boy out. We'll have a conversation after the fact. Dylan Freeze, episode 1, part 1 of 2 episodes. Folks, stay tuned. Listen for the next episode and help us continue building a culture of anglers helping anglers, one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a fucking toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.